In September of 1986, Cleveland, the only major city to default on their loans after the Great Depression, tried to reclaim their past reputation. As a fundraiser for United Way Cleveland, students spent their day inflating helium balloons in an attempt to beat the world record for the largest balloon release ever. When the near 1.5 million balloons were released, it resulted in short-lived success that was brought to a halt when a cold front passed over Cleveland, causing the balloons to fall onto Lake Erie. When 2 fishermen in the area were reported missing, the Coast Guard's search was greatly interfered by the mass of balloons on the surface of the water that resembled heads and life jackets. Those Cleveland men were found days later, dead on the shore. Since 1868, Cleveland has been seen as an industrial city, full of gasoline, metal, and paint manufacturing. These facilities were the heart of Cleveland and gave many jobs to locals. All of these factories sat close to the infamous Cuyahoga River that flows throughout Cleveland. The corporations used this river to pour out excess pollutants from those factories. It became one of the most polluted rivers in the United States. And between 1868 and 1969, the Cuyahoga River caught on fire 12 times, the last of which, in 1969, was heavily publicized, giving Cleveland a negative stigma that would continue on for many years to come. As the American economy shifted away from the industrial sector, Cleveland failed to adapt, causing businesses and people to relocate from Cleveland. This led to a chain reaction of problems. As the population diminished, the property values declined, preventing the Cleveland government from collecting enough revenue to cover their expenses. This caused them to default on $15.5 million in loans, making Cleveland the first major city to do so since the Great Depression. This made Cleveland, if not already, the laughingstock of America, and solidified the nickname, the mistake on the lake. Shortly after this large default in river fire, Cleveland's tourism tanked. Although not one of the biggest industries, the interest in Cleveland was declining. Cleveland had varied attempts at rebranding, including multiple slogans, such as, "New York's the Big Apple, but Cleveland's a plum," and "Cleveland, you gotta be tough." Although catchy, these slogans never attracted much outside attention. In hopes to get national attention, Ted Stepien, the 1980s owner of the Cavaliers, was looking to promote his softball team. He dropped softballs off the top of Cleveland's tallest building, Terminal Tower, in hopes for them to be caught by players down below.
Spectators gathered at the foot of Terminal Tower for the great softball drop, the highlight of a series of events marking the 50th anniversary of our city's tallest building. Inside the tower to make the tosses was Ted Stepien, owner of the professional softball team bearing his name. Down below were 6 of his players hoping to make the immaculate reception. But 3 errant tosses proved hazardous to 1 car and 2 observers, among them 24-year-old Gail Felinsky of Strongsville, whose broken wrist will long remind her of the lofty lob. On the 5th drop, history was made and outfielder Mike Zerfoss was on the receiving end.
Although impressive, this event was shown to be another reason for outsiders to think Cleveland was a dying city. Cleveland needed redemption, even more after the embarrassment of the softball drop. And on September 27, 1986, the city of Cleveland and United Way Cleveland, with coordination by Balloon Art by Treb, a Los Angeles company led by Treb Heining, attempted the largest balloon release in history, with nearly 1.5 million balloons. Children sold sponsorships for $1 every 2 balloons they inflated. Treb Heining, the man running this event, had previously held the record with a 1.2 million balloon launch at Disneyland for their 30th anniversary. A 200-foot by 150-foot rectangular structure, raising about 3 stories, and covered with 1 layer of mesh material sheet. was constructed to contain the balloons before the launch. Students and other volunteers went to the town square and started inflating balloons early in the morning. As potential rain approached, the estimated 1.4 million balloons had to be released early at around 1:50 p.m. And as the terminal tower was surrounded by a cloud of balloons, the world record for the largest balloon release ever had been broken. The title previously held by Disneyland was now a bragging right for Cleveland.
And the fan is up, and there they go, John.
The Guinness Book of World Records has just been broken in Cleveland. Over 1,500,000 balloons going up in the air at this very, very moment. Look at the crowd go! We did it!
We did it, John! There it goes! It's completely covering the terminal tower. Look at that!
I want to sing up and away! It is awesome, ladies and gentlemen, to actually be down here and see the multi-colors that are going up in the air at this moment.
We did it, John!
This is it!
Let's hear it for Cleveland!
Yeah! Ladies and gentlemen, there is no mistake on the lake anymore. Cleveland has now broken the Guinness Book of World Records and released over 1,500,000 balloons. Think of that, Chuck. The Guinness Book of World Records, the Cleveland home of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. All of this in Cleveland, Ohio.
The All-American City.
Typically, when balloons are released, they tend to raise about 5 miles, then pop and glide down. But as a cold front and rain passed over Cleveland, many of those balloons fell into Lake Erie. This obstructed the lake, land, and airways of the area, causing the Burke Lakefront Airport to shut down. Some of the balloons landed in a pasture in northeast Ohio and allegedly caused mental and physical trauma to Louis Nowakowski's Persian horses. She then sued United Way Cleveland and Balloon Art by Treb, the organizers of the event, for $100,000 and settled for an undisclosed amount. Although it seemed the balloons would still bring attention to Cleveland and only be a mild inconvenience to those present, disaster struck when 2 fishermen, Raymond Broderick and Bernard Silver, went out fishing right before a large storm on the night of September 27th.
It's been an exhausting search for these Coast Guardsmen. They've been out on the water most of the day looking for 2 40-year-old Cleveland men, Skip Sullivan and Raymond Broderick. They went out fishing about an hour before last night's heavy storm blew through. This is their boat, a pair of life jackets still in it, along with a hat and a fishing pole. The boat's motor is gone. Its sides are battered, apparently from pounding all night against this section of the breakwall off Edgewater Park. That's where the Coast Guard found the boat about 8:30 this morning.
Ironically, that big balloon launch in Cleveland today is one of the things that's making this search so tough for the Coast Guard. Can you imagine trying to find somebody floating out here or even spotting a life jacket with all these balloons on the water?
It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack here, because you're looking for more or less a head or an orange life jacket, and here you have a couple 100,000 orange balloons, and it's just hard to decipher which is which.
The bodies of the fishermen washed ashore 2 days later, undermining the promotion efforts of the city. This event had turned from a charitable event to a major setback for Cleveland's reputation and future. The wife of one of the fishermen then sued for $3.2 million and settled for an undisclosed amount. Days later, the balloons were picked up by wind, where they caused environmental problems in Ontario, and according to a local resident, were an eyesore. There is still some controversy about whether the event should be recognized, but currently it holds the record for the largest balloon release ever. Although most of the outcomes were negative, the Balloonfest brought attention to this issue and in turn caused legislation to be passed that would prohibit events like this.